Good morning, good people. It is Wednesday, September 29th. This is Wake Up with Ray G. Welcome. Happy to be here. Hope y'all are enjoying the start to your morning. We were blessed enough to put 2 feet on the ground, see, head high, eyes forward. So let's make it great today, baby. Jay Rich, how you doing, big dog?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited for the show, previewing Thursday Night Football, talking about the very big game we got in the SEC this weekend. One of the big games we got in the SEC. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Going to talk about it some more today. Battle of the Heisman front runners. I'm excited, man. Today's going to be a good show.
Yeah, man. And, I was just watching different sports outlets yesterday, and this is why I think it's so important. And this is sort of a fantasy conversation that we're going to have here right now. But I was listening to a lot of conversation about stemmed around Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers and NFL teams having a succession plan to Hall of Fame or incumbent starters, right? So you look at, remember when Green Bay drafted Aaron Rodgers, I think he sat on the bench for, what was it, like 3 years?
3 years almost.
3 years. He sat on the bench. And while that may have been frustrating for Aaron Rodgers at that time and created maybe a contentious relationship between Brett Favre, the old guy, and the new guard in Aaron Rodgers, what that allowed Green Bay to do was truly set up a plan for life after Brett Favre. And you saw that cycle sort of, a lot of people bash on Green Bay. Why would you take Jordan Love? Now, maybe the quarterback was the wrong pick. Maybe it shouldn't have been Jordan Love. But the fact that they drafted their replacement, or at least a person that they thought could be a replacement for Aaron Rodgers, it put them in a position to be able to thrive and be successful once Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay came to an end. And, again, we can debate whether Jordan Love was the right pick or not, but NFL teams doing that and having a plan moving forward is that's what you have to do. And you sit back and you look at Pittsburgh, man. Good organization, good head coach. They have talent all over the field on the defensive side of the ball. They have 3 talented wide receivers on offense. They drafted a stud tight end. Then they drafted a running back. None of that matters. None of it matters if you don't have a plan in place for your quarterback of the future. The fact that Pittsburgh, they were so short-sighted that they couldn't see what everybody else saw, which is Ben Roethlisberger is cooked. Honestly, man, I'm sitting there thinking about, my Najee Harris rostership in Dynasty Fantasy Football, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster. This could be really, really bad for Pittsburgh. Like, it could be like full rebuild mode because there is no plan after Ben. Ben has looked horrible in 3 games, and the only thing that is keeping Najee Harris afloat is pure volume because it's not efficiency. There are no running games. The offensive line is terrible. NFL defenses don't respect the pass whatsoever when it comes to Pittsburgh. And at this point, if you're the Steelers, and I know people don't like talking about this, and we play to win the game, we play every week to win the game. If they don't have an opportunity to draft 1 or 2 of the probably more talented quarterbacks in this class, it could get ugly real quick in Pittsburgh. And I'm talking, they better be targeting Matt Corral, Carson Strong, Malik Willis, or Sam Howell. I think if Pittsburgh does not walk away with one of those 4 quarterbacks in 2022, it's just going to get ugly, man. And I think we have to do that as well for everybody out there that participates in Dynasty Fantasy Football. You got to be thinking ahead as well. I always talk about Dynasty is a game of chess, not checkers. The more you know, the better you can position your Dynasty team for short and long-term success. It just had me thinking about that. We always have to be thinking a step ahead. And we're going to get into this later in the show, but this weekend provides a great glimpse of what could potentially be coming in the NFL at the quarterback position when we talk about Matt Corral and the Ole Miss Rebels and their task that they have going into Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. This, outside, again, we said this yesterday, New England, Tampa Bay, show-stopping game. Probably has a chance to be the most viewed regular season game in NFL history. But Alabama Ole Miss is another one that we really, really need to be paying attention to. And for those of us who have draft picks in the 2022, rookie draft picks in Dynasty Fantasy Football for 2022, I know a lot of people have been telling you, and me included, to fade the 2022 class. I don't think you should be doing that. There may not be the elite prospects like we had in a Jonathan Taylor or, what many thought Joe Burrow to be, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. There's still some really good players coming out in 2022, and we will hit on all of those guys at some point in time. I mean, we're on here 5 days a damn week, so we got plenty of time to talk about a little bit of everything. But you really have to start planning ahead. And I think this whole Pittsburgh situation, it's going to hurt us in fantasy and also from a betting perspective, because honestly, man, I don't have confidence in any of those dudes, man. Like, none of them, Najee included. I mean, we know he's going to get the volume, but I think 70% of his carries, I think there was a stat that 70% of his carries, he's being contacted behind the line of scrimmage. And I'm seeing people talk about, oh, he's not evading tackles. Yeah, probably. He's got to work extremely hard to get those 40 yards that he's getting when he's touched 70% of his carries behind the line of scrimmage. I love Najee Harris. I'm a big fan of Deontay Johnson. I still like Juju Smith-Schuster, and I do believe Chase Claypool has really, really high upside. But this offense is scary, even with all these pieces, Jay. I don't know, man. Do you have any thought about the Pittsburgh situation, or just finding your succession plan earlier rather than being reactive? You want to be ahead of the eight ball, not behind it. And right now, say what you want about Green Bay, they at least took the steps to try to get ahead of the eight ball and try to get ahead of a potential problem with no quarterback. Dallas Cowboys did the same thing. When they took Dak Prescott in the 4th round of the 2016 NFL draft, they already had Tony Romo, but they're thinking ahead. They're moving forward. Dwayne Haskins and Mason Rudolph are not the answer in Pittsburgh. They better figure it out, man. They better do something real soon, man.
Yeah, so I think where I sort of disagree with you a little bit is that you look at the rift that drafting Jordan Love caused the Packers.
I don't care. Yeah. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, man. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. A lot of people are like, oh no, look at the rift it caused. It doesn't matter. It caused a rift when Green Bay drafted Aaron Rodgers and they had Brett Favre. But it didn't matter because they ended up winning a Super Bowl a few years later because they had a guy in place ready to play. If I'm running a business, if you are a CEO of a company, do you not go out and hire top-level talent just because you already have somebody in the building? You've got to make sure that you can sustain your success long-term and short-term. So whatever rift it caused. Now, again, I'm not saying the approach was right. Maybe they should have reached out to Aaron Rodgers and said, look, Aaron, this is what we're going to do. And I think they've even admitted that we probably should have involved him in the conversation.
Yeah, they did do that, yeah.
But the rift, it doesn't matter about what the rift cost, because Aaron Rodgers is still playing well. He won an MVP last year with Jordan Love on the bench. That rift does not matter. You have to have a plan in place because Aaron Rodgers will not be there forever.
So that part is right, but what I will say is in my opinion, you're living in the minority situation. You talked about Dak Prescott. You're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Dak Prescott, I believe, was a 4th-round pick or 3rd-round pick. So again, not going to cause a massive rift there with Tony Romo, only a 4th-round pick. Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, when they drafted Mason Rudolph, when they drafted Josh Dobbs, when they brought in Dwayne Haskins, hoped that one of those guys could be the incumbent. We don't know that Jordan Love can be an incumbent that's even serviceable. The Packers seem to think that maybe he can be, but we don't know. We haven't seen him play yet. Mason Rudolph, we saw play. He stinks. To your point, Josh Dobbs, we saw play. He was not very good. Dwayne Haskins doesn't look very good. So, while I think the Steelers tried, they just failed. And this happens a lot in the NFL. When you have a quarterback for nearly 20 years, trying to replace that guy is not going to be easy. But where I sort of agree with you is that Ben's been doing this where he should have been gone for way too long. Way, way too long. Like, he hasn't looked good for now, I think, coming on 3 years, where he can't throw the ball deep. He had the shoulder injury, I believe, 2 years ago. Now he's throwing the ball 58 times, can't throw it more than 10 yards half the time. Chase Claypool is basically useless because Ben can't get him the ball down the field half the time. So, I think that you are living a little bit in the minority situation where you do get that incumbent and it works out. A lot of the times, unfortunately, it doesn't. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that we may like in the draft, but may not be.
But you're focusing on the results, not the process. The process is correct.
But the process that the Steelers did is what you're talking about. They drafted Mason Rudolph. They drafted Josh Dobbs. They brought in Dwayne Haskins. Like, those are all, and I believe Josh Dobbs was still a 4th-round pick, out of Tennessee. Super smart guy. But it just didn't work out.
Okay. But you knew right away that Mason Rudolph wasn't the guy. You knew that they had a sample size. They should know that. They should know that.
But do you?
They should.
So the problem is that now this year, they keep drafting.
You keep doing it until you look at what Arizona drafted Josh Rosen in the 1st round. What, top 15 pick in the very top 10 pick,
or 8, something like that.
In the very next season, they said, "Yo, he ain't."
But the thing is, Pittsburgh hasn't been that bad. Like, so you think about, let's just use this year as an
example.
Ben
has been that bad. Ben has been that bad.
Who are you drafting after Mac Jones in the 1st round or in the 2nd round that can replace Ben Roethlisberger? Are you drafting Kyle Trask? Are you drafting Davis Mills? Are you drafting Kellen Mond? That's who was available.
Let me tell you. At their spot, correct. In the Chicago Bears also, how many trades did we see in the 1st round of last year's draft?
Yeah,
multiple trades. So instead of sitting there at 25 and taking a running back, which as much as I love Najee Harris, that has not worked out for every team. Like any running back in the first, it has not worked out. Zeke going 4th, Christian McCaffrey going 8th, Saquon Barkley going 2nd. Yeah, we may love them for fantasy, but that does not work out. So instead of picking a running back at 25, move your ass up to get one of those guys. Like you. And you talk about, well, Dak, the Cowboys took Dak in the 4th. The Cowboys were prepared to take Paxton Lynch at number 17 overall. That's what they wanted to do. Jerry Jones came out and said it. Denver sniped us on Paxton Lynch, the big-armed quarterback out of Memphis. We were going to take Paxton Lynch at 17 with Tony Romo there. You cannot win a Super Bowl, which is the goal for these NFL teams. I think we get things misconstrued that the goal is to score fantasy points. The goal is to win the Millie Maker in DFS. The goal is to win a Super Bowl. You cannot win a Super Bowl without a competent quarterback. You can't do it. San Francisco, if they had any other quarterback besides Jimmy Garoppolo, they win the Super Bowl. He missed Emmanuel Sanders, game sealed. They would have won the Super Bowl. They got there, but if you remember during their playoff run, I believe it was the divisional game, Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball 7 damn times. 7 times. And then they end up still, because they don't trust the dude. They don't trust him, and that's why even after giving Jared Goff, just think about what the Rams are doing. If the Rams had Matthew Stafford instead of Jared Goff versus New England, they win that Super Bowl. Look how much better this. Just think Matthew Stafford with prime Todd Gurley, with Cooper Kupp.
Oh shit, I was muted. But
everything you said was muted. Like, come on, bro. Like, stop. You're talking. No. The Rams with a competent quarterback, it unlocks everything. There were people who were down on Sean McVay. There were people who were like, oh, McVay isn't it. No, he was fine. He just had Jared Goff at quarterback, and that's why they couldn't do what they did. So it does not – I don't give a shit if you have to draft a quarterback every year until you find the guy. You got to do it. I'm not saying you draft a quarterback every year in round 1, but Pittsburgh is in a situation where they have no choice but to do that this year.
Yeah, and I think to your point, even when they drafted Mason Rudolph, it was probably still a year or two too late. They should have been looking already to find that incumbent for Ben because they knew it was coming. They must have known that.
You would think, but I don't know why we got into that. But real quick, Jay, let's put this shit up on the screen real quick. I wanna hit on something real quick. Hey, Matt Friedman, our chief strategy officer at FTN Fantasy, there's a position opening up. Part-time, that could be full-time, 2 to 5 people were looking for him. So if you want to get into fantasy space, if you've got a unique skill set, I mean, it's been retweeted over hundreds of times. If you're looking for an opportunity, make sure you tap in. Matt Friedman, the Fantasy Oracle, make sure you check it out if you want an opportunity to get down in the space. But yo, we got some news to get to. Jay, why don't you roll into that?
So let's start with my favorite news of the day. the NFL and Dapper Labs have agreed to a deal to create an NFT marketplace and digital collectibles that is going to be similar to NBA Top Shot. So if you were on Twitter or you were just perusing the internet sometime February, March, you heard about NBA Top Shot and how it took over the sports world, how it took over the NBA world for, a couple months. It had its moment where it was up. It kind of went down now, but we know that the NFL is king. It's always been king for, God knows how long. And so when this finally launches, I don't know how long it's going to take for them to kind of build it out, but it's going to be a massive thing. It's going to be big in the collector space. And I'm really excited to kind of see what they do with it. I've been impressed with the NBA product so far, so I'm interested to kind of see how they work that in with the NFL. So it's an interesting partnership, something to keep a lookout for, because it's going to be big. It's going to take over your timeline, so you might as well know about it now and, take a look at it when it finally comes out. And then as well, it was being reported that Ben Simmons no longer wants to play with Joel Embiid. Pretty funny when Joel Embiid is a lot better than Ben Simmons. So it's kind of like me saying, I don't want to play with LeBron. He's too bossy. It doesn't really matter.
It's kind of like you saying, I don't want to do this show without Ray. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
doesn't make any better.
It doesn't make
matter,
sense,
right?
Yeah.
So who really cares? It doesn't matter. But then as well, Jamie Collins was cut, which I thought was interesting. Do you think there's any suitors for him, like kind of directly off the bat? So Detroit Lions linebacker Jamie Collins, previously All-Pro with the Patriots. He's kind of been bounced around a little bit. If you're getting cut from the Lions, you probably don't got a whole lot, but he's being paid $8.8 million this year from the Lions, so he could take a minimum contract on any team. You never know. Someone may scoop him up.
I don't know.
And then as well, FTN Daily has finally launched their NBA package, their NBA early bird pricing, $200 season-long DFS. You get the optimizer, you get ownership projections, you get Eddie Fears rankings, you get DVP and advanced splits, you get the Discord, and you get college basketball content and Discord, all for $200 for the whole season. And there's only 50 of these available, so I would go and get it now if you want to participate with the NBA DFS team. They crush it every year. I tail all their picks. I tail their DFS optimizers. I do it all because they really do a great job at preparing us for the NBA season.
And there's only 50 of them. They treating FTN Daily is treating this shit like sneakers, man. Like I'm trying to get some off-white ones. You only get 50, only 50 available, man. You better
50
hurry
at
up.
200, then it goes to 225, and then it's only going up from there. So you got to get in early.
I mean, we might need to get in because every damn day I'm seeing people winning $50,000, 27 grand. Like I need to jump. I need one of these 50, man. But we got some other interesting sports topics that we want to get into, featuring one of the GOATs. We'll talk about that once we get into the morning run.
Wake up! This is the morning run.
Run, Forrest, run!
So we talked about it. One of the GOATs is calling it quits. Manny Pacquiao. I will never forget what I've done and accomplished in my life. I can't imagine that I've just heard the final bell. Manny Pacquiao said that is it. He is a big-time politician in his home country of the Philippines, and I believe he's going to run for, president there, or is he the president there, or he's going to run?
He is currently a sitting senator, and he's running for president in May.
He's running for president in May. He holds a record of 62-8-2, 39 knockouts, and probably the highlight of his career was the super fight against Floyd Mayweather in 2015. I remember just being so excited for that boxing fight, and it did not live up to the hype. I think Manny had a broken hand going into that, or a recovering broken hand, but he's the only boxer to hold titles in four different decades. That's how long Pacquiao's been fighting for. Again, 62-8-2, 39 knockouts in his career. Just a fantastic career for one of the best boxers that we've ever seen, a true warrior in the sport. Towards the end of his career, we saw Manny take some pretty bad shots, took some pretty bad losses. But one thing you can never say about Pacquiao is dude didn't get in the ring and give it his all. True champion, true warrior. Manny Pacquiao calling it quits. You have anything to say about the Pac-Man?
Honestly, not a whole lot. I didn't watch Manny Pacquiao that much, but I did watch that Floyd fight. It was pretty boring, but it is what it is. And you're right. I forget what the injury was. It might have even been a torn rotator cuff that he still fought with.
Yeah.
Because they talked about how his punching power wasn't quite there. He looked a little bit weak, and that was one of the reasons why. I believe he had a torn rotator cuff. Which, if anyone's ever torn their rotator cuff or even just hurt their rotator cuff, it's very difficult to extend your arm in any capacity doing so.
Wait a minute.
Pacquiao.
Wait. We've got a special guest. Some guests joining the show. Is CeeDee Lamb here? CD. How about them Cowboys? Look at those GQ little men right there. My 4-year-old and my 1-year-old rocking the cat. Jay, where you at, man? Where you at?
I'm here. I'm still here, but apparently I've been replaced by 2 very cute little boys.
You know, I'm just still so impressed. I'm listening to all these people talking about Dallas beating the hapless Eagles, and we shouldn't be excited about that win. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, man, we appreciate y'all stopping by the show. Jay, would you like to come back and run into the Ole Miss Alabama game, or do we just need to leave these two rascals up for the rest of the show?
It's up to you. I love your boys. They're awesome. We talk from time to time, even though I can't always understand what they're saying because sometimes they babble. But we make the most of our conversations together and we enjoy each other. So I appreciate all the time I have with them.
All right. Well, you're getting paid to be on here, so we'll go ahead and throw you up, even though I think looking at them is a little bit better. But let's go ahead and get into this Saturday night matchup that we talked about, Alabama and Ole Miss. Matt Corral, Bryce Young, Alabama favored by 14.5 points with an over-under total of damn near 80 points, man. They're going to drop 40 apiece. What's going down in this one, man?
I'm so tempted to take your boy, Matt Corral. I want to take him on the money line and I want to take him on the spread. There's just something about him this season. I think it's magic. I just think there's just magic in Mississippi. I don't know why, but as much as I love Alabama, and like we always say, you don't bet against Alabama. You just don't do it. You're probably going to lose. I think the only time we bet against them, we lost was week 1, and we bet the over, and it's the only over Alabama didn't hit all season. They've hit the over 3 straight weeks. Ole Miss, on top of that, highest scoring offense in all of college football. Most yardage in all of college football. That's because of that man on the left right there, Heisman front runner, Matt Corral. I just don't believe Alabama can stop him. Lane Kiffin coming back to Bama. He's ready, man. Like, he's been waiting for this moment because he didn't beat them last year, but they still dropped 48 points. The problem is Jalen Waddle didn't play. I don't believe in that game. But, or you know what? He might have actually played in that game because it was early in the season. I believe it was only week 2. But then there's still Devontae Smith, Heisman Trophy winner. Mac Jones dropped 400 yards. Like, again, 3 first-round picks on that team. They ain't playing. And I believe Najee Harris went for over 200.
Yeah,
so all those guys are gone, right? But now you got Matt Corral returning his 2 running backs. He did lose Kenny Boa and Elijah Moore, but they haven't skipped a beat on offense. They're going to be running full cylinder, and I think it's going to take Alabama a little bit to catch up early. So we'll see what happens. But Matt Corral's been in this environment before. He's played this Bama team before. Again, different personnel, going to be the same Bama. But last year, 63-48 was the final score.
Yeah.
I think we could be in for another 100-point over-under, and I'd be heavily taking the over, even at 80 points.
I think if the game is going to be played like that, and it's going to be an over, if we're betting the over, I'm going to put my chips in on Ole Miss. They've got the more experience on offense, even from the backfield. I mean, Brian Robinson's been there for 10 years, so he's a pretty experienced running back. He's just not very good. But Snoop Connor, Jerrion Ealy, Drummond, and Matt Corral. And when you look at Ole Miss this season, they are averaging more yards per game than any other school in the country. 635.3 yards per game, scoring 52.7 points per game. Ole Miss is 2-0-1 against the spread in their 3 games this season and have hit the over in every single game, correct?
Yeah.
I mean,
just insane.
And right now, the odds for the Heisman Trophy, I mean, they're tied up. It's Bryce Young at plus 175 and Matt Corral also at plus 175. And I said this early in the season, the winner of this matchup, the winner of this game, I believe will win the Heisman Trophy and is going to have the best shot. And if it's Matt Corral, he's the person with the best shot to push Kayvon Thibodeau for the number 1 overall pick, which I think the bet for that, like if I'm looking at it, and I've got the 2022 NFL Draft future props up right now. Right now, Kayvon Thibodeau, defensive end from Oregon, is the odds-on favorite at plus 175 to be the first overall pick. I got him back at like plus 800 to be the number 1 overall pick. Guess who's second? The second favorite to go number 1 overall.
Is it Sam Howell?
Spencer Rattler at plus 200. Sam Howell's at plus 600. Matt Corral still down there at plus 800. So what this tells me is a lot of people still haven't bought in to Matt Corral. Maybe they don't know who he is. They don't watch a lot of Ole Miss football. When I look at the top names, Spencer Rattler, everyone's talked about Spencer Rattler. If there's anything that I can tell you all and that you could cash and take to the bank, Spencer Rattler will not be the first overall pick. You can cash that.
There's no way.
You can cash that. If I'm wrong, I listen, I'll do something absolutely asinine, but there's no way Spencer Rattler is going to be the number one overall pick. And at plus 200, 2-1, no thank you. They've got Malik Willis at plus 500, and again, Matt Corral at plus 800. If Corral goes out there and just does what he did last year, which was, I believe, 300-400 passing yards and then 100 something
350. Yeah, 350 plus a bunch of rushing yards too.
And then like that's going to solidify it. His talent, his arm talent, number 4 overall quarterback back in 2018, high school All-American out of Long Beach Poly, played there for his final season. Dual threat kind of guy. He is a true dual threat quarterback, not a Spencer Rattler type dual threat. Matt Corral can do it with his arm. He can do it with his legs. And when you look at some of the advanced passing stats for Matt Corral, they both are averaging around 2.67 seconds from the snap to throw the ball. So their offensive lines are playing well, but Ole Miss's offensive line is a little bit better based on advanced stats than Alabama. I believe they're 4th in the country in allowing pressure to the quarterback, whereas Alabama's 58th. So Alabama, even with Evan Neal, who's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, they're still giving up a lot of pressure on Bryce Young. And Bryce Young can move, but he's not the same type of runner as Matt Corral. This is going to be, I'm just questioning a little bit the home run ability and the capability of some of the Alabama playmakers. You know, you've got Jamison Williams. John Mechie has been okay this season. We haven't seen much from the highly touted Ajay Hall. It's not the same group. I believe Alabama's got a better quarterback than they had last year. I think Bryce Young is a better quarterback than Mac Jones. He probably isn't operating the offense like Mac Jones did because that was his 3rd year in the system. So he's been around. He's played in games. Mac Jones had time to play when Tua got hurt in 2019. But I think he's a better overall quarterback. But I still question some of the playmakers around Bryce Young. And what I don't question is Matt Corral in any point. Last year, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. The thing that I said about Corral, he's got to clean up the turnover-prone mistakes, the bad decision-making, and he's doing the exact opposite of Spencer Rattler. He is taking care of the ball. He is making good decisions, whereas Spencer Rattler continues to make poor decisions week in and week out. They are a physical football team with Snoop Connor and Jerrion Ely, Drummond at wide receiver. The more and more I think about this game, I dive into Lane Kiffin and what they do offensively, how good this Ole Miss team is. Even if I wasn't confident with the over, if you're giving me 14.5 points with Ole Miss, I'm taking that because there's no way, I don't believe there's any way that Ole Miss gets boat raced and run out of Tuscaloosa. I do not think that is going to happen. I still question the secondary of Alabama, which has been susceptible to some big plays. And this is probably going to be the best quarterback they have faced collectively as a team since they since they lost to Joe Burrow en route to the national championship in 2019. This is outside of the national championship. This is the game that I'm most excited for. And I think from a ton of different angles, we should all be tuned in to Alabama Ole Miss this weekend.
Yeah, man. And I think your biggest point is these wide receivers. While there's a ton of talent there, it's just they're not ready yet to be that dominant in this offense. And they're going to have 2 years with Bryce Young. A lot of them will. And I think that's going to be the difference maker here. You have Bryce Young, who's a talented quarterback, but he's not playing with veteran receivers the way that Mac Jones was last year. He's playing with a lot of newer guys who are getting a lot more work every single day. And so even you look at the game against Florida 2 weeks ago, it was still 31-29. Like Florida's, I don't want to say they're a bad team, but I don't think they're as good. I don't think they're as good as maybe their record indicated. I don't think they're as good as to put up, have a game that close against Alabama. Great performance by them. Probably the best game they'll play all season. But I think it's going to take a lot more than that to beat Matt Corral and Ole Miss. Like, they've just been on another level this season. We'll see how the defense plays. But all I want to see, and for everyone who doesn't know this play last season, but there was a play last year where Elijah Moore ran a sluggo route. Dude was wide open in the middle of the field. Matt Corral got on the ball, and Lane Kiffin threw his clipboard like 40 yards in the air. That is all I want to see. I want to see a bomb from Matt Corral to somebody out there, and just watch Lane Kiffin run down the sideline and chuck his clipboard 40 yards in the air, because it is just going to be crazy in Tuscaloosa. And I think the buck does stop with Lane Kiffin in a lot of ways. Coming from Alabama, working in that system, now making his own way at Ole Miss, he's going to be jacked up for this game. He's going to have his players ready to play. And if there's one guy who I think could take advantage of this Alabama defense, he's probably near the top of the list of guys who can exploit the defense more than anyone.
Well, and that's the thing, man. And Alabama, you think about Alabama and them having being Alabama, having a great total defense, giving up, some of the fewest points in the league in college football. And that has not been the case this season. That just hasn't been the case. I mean, the number one defense in the country is Georgia for very good reason. Alabama isn't even, they're 27th in the country in total defense, in scoring defense, excuse me.
Yeah.
So this is just prime for me. I'm taking Ole Miss in the points. And then if I'm really feeling just a little bit, okay, maybe tease it. Give them an extra 6 points. Give them an extra 6.5 points. Ole Miss is not going to lose by 3 touchdowns. I don't think they're going to lose at all. I think Ole Miss takes down Alabama. They secure their spot in probably the college football. This game has a ton of ramifications. If Ole Miss beats Bama, loses in the SEC title game, are they going to give them the nod, or are they going to give Alabama? Could we see 3 SEC teams in the college football playoff that have one? Think about it. 3, if Ole Miss beats Bama, or even if Bama beats Ole Miss, and Ole Miss finishes the season with 1 loss, Alabama versus Georgia, one of them are going to lose. So now you've got a 1-loss Georgia, who would be number 1 in the country, or number 2, or a 1-loss Alabama. I'm pretty sure both of those teams get in. Would the playoff committee say, you know what, Ole Miss played Bama to a T, it came down to the end? Is there a world in which we see 3 SEC teams in the college football playoff? Do you think they would even have the stones to do something like that?
So I think that opens up a lot of variables, right? Because you already have Ohio State, who even at 1 loss, because they only have 1 loss,
done.
right?
They're not getting in. I don't think they
shouldn't get in, but you never know.
With the
committee, anything can happen. If they get 1 loss, they run the table, win the Big Ten title, like we kind of expect them to do. I think they do have a small shot over Ole Miss. There's still the chances of Oregon going undefeated and winning the Pac-12, which may get them in, and our friends down in Oklahoma, who still, as bad as they looked this week, they still can run the table and win the Big 12, at which point maybe they get in. I don't know. You know me, from the very beginning, I'm like, Oklahoma's overrated. They shouldn't. I think they're still 6th ranked in the country, and they almost lost to like West Virginia or something this week. No, just get Spencer Rattler off this high horse. Sam Howell's better than him. Matt Corral's better than him.
I just think it's
Carson Strong's better than him. Let's just stop it. Let's just stop.
If the goal,
Rattler, he's not that good.
If the goal is to get the 4 best teams in the country in, if that's the goal, because Evan said it, Penn State and Iowa are probably going to win or at least the front runners in the. And Iowa's 5th in the country, I believe, and Penn State is like 8th.
How do you feel about
7th.
that? I don't believe in them. Penn State too. Penn State's looked a lot better. Clifford's looked pretty decent, and Dodson's been playing really well.
I mean, we're only 4 games in. We're going to see if this is. It's just tricky for me, because if Alabama loses and then they run the table, they still don't get to the SEC title game. They still don't make it.
Yeah.
So now you've got a 1-loss Alabama who lost to the team that's in the SEC title game versus Georgia, right? If Georgia loses, Ole Miss is in. Do you put Georgia or Alabama in? Do you put the team that lost the SEC title game in, or do you take the Alabama Crimson? I think that if we're fans of chaos and you're fans of college football, you should be hoping Ole Miss beats Bama this weekend. Bama runs the table, wins out. Ole Miss gets to the SEC title game, beats Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Because if they do that, Ole Miss is locked in. If Ole Miss beats Georgia, they are locked in. Does the committee take both one-loss Georgia and one-loss Alabama and exclude either Oklahoma, Iowa, Penn State, or Ohio State, or Oklahoma? Because those would be the 4 other at-large teams, and just making an all SEC play.
This season is by far the most chaotic we've seen. Some of the big dogs are just falling early. Like, there's teams kind of coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, because Clemson's out, right? Clemson's out.
Yeah,
right?
They have 2 losses. They lost to NC State.
Oh, they lost 2
this
games.
week.
Yeah, they're done. They're done.
So you think about it from that perspective, it's the most chaos we've seen in years. Like, I don't know if you could probably put a year on it, but it feels like in the college football playoff era, period. You know, we've always seen Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama.
Not yet. It's not chaos yet. If Ole Miss,
I don't know, man.
I think they're going to beat Alabama this weekend, man. I truly think they will beat Alabama this weekend. I think when you're talking about free money bets this weekend are Ole Miss, give me the 14.5 points.
The spread, yeah.
New England -6.5 versus Tampa Bay -6.5 in New England.
It's already 7 too.
Free money bet right there. Even at -7, that's free money. I just, again, based on the statistics, based on how I've seen these teams play, and Alabama for the life of them, and Nick Saban even admitted it on the Monday night cast with Peyton and Eli, the spread offense has changed how college football is played. And Alabama struggles mightily with spread offensive teams that play up-tempo with that dual-threat quarterback that can beat you on the ground and through the air. That's what they struggle with. And they will not find this will probably be, the most dynamic QB that they have played against since Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow isn't half the rusher that Matt Corral is. He's not. And I think Will Anderson or Christian Harris, one of the top linebackers from Alabama, I know they got injured early in the season. I don't know if either of those guys are back. Listen, man, I'm all for chaos. So this one, I'll be at dinner with my wife on Saturday night, but I will sit strategically at a spot where I can look at the TV, so I can be in tune with my wife, but also in tune with the game, because I can't miss it. Wife got to understand, marriage comes first, but this is a close second. Alabama, Ole Miss is a very close second. I will not be missing this matchup. But please, y'all, tap in, because we are going to talk a lot about this game and the implications. Again, Matt Corral beats Alabama. He's going to be the one to push Kayvon Thibodeau for the number 1 overall pick, which is really going to be dependent on which NFL team finishes last. If it's Jacksonville, of course, they're not going to take another quarterback. But if it's anybody else, there's probably Brandon said you better hope she doesn't watch today. She watches every damn day. She watches every day. It was her birthday yesterday, so shout out to Rashida Garvin, my wife. Happy belated to you. I should have did that yesterday on the show, but I hooked her up on on the back end. So Thursday night football, Jay. We got Thursday night football. Cincinnati, and who's this other team? Urban Meyer's Jacksonville Jaguars. Jamar Chase.
For now, at least.
Jamar Chase is the man of the hour, the leader for NFL Rookie of the Year right now, which is insane because normally this is a quarterback award, and I still think it's going to go to a quarterback. It's at the point now where if Trey Lance just plays 6 games and plays well in those 6 games, he's going to win the damn thing, because Trevor Lawrence is throwing all kind of interceptions. Mac Jones isn't throwing enough. Justin Fields, I saw Benjamin Albright tweet out, everybody who thinks that game and Justin Fields' inability to move the ball, anybody who thinks that was Matt Nagy's fault was going to be very upset when they watched the eating crow when they watched the All-22. So I'm assuming Fields did himself no favors in that matchup as well, and we kind of talked about that first game for a rookie QB on the road versus a great defense. Probably not the best situation for him. But Jamar Chase has been balling. A touchdown in the first 3 games. He's the first player in NFL history to do that, have 25-yard plus touchdowns in the first 3 games of his career, I think in the history of the game. So, I mean, he's already off to a hot start on low volume. Where are you at with this game, with Cincinnati being favored by 7.5? And Jacksonville actually played Arizona pretty tough that first half of the game, and then it just was kind of broken wide open when Trevor Lawrence threw that flea flicker interception for a touchdown, and then that was pretty much a wrap for Jacksonville. What are your thoughts on this matchup right here?
I think it's going to be better than people think. We've seen Jacksonville kind of struggle on offense, but there's also seen some pretty good things from them as well. I think I'm still leaning towards taking Cincinnati on the spread, even though it's 7.5, which is a little bit more than I'd like it to be. The Bengals are still 2-1 against the spread, and the Jaguars are 0-3. So they've never covered a spread. Never. So what makes me think they're going to cover a spread this week? Like we've talked about for weeks now, after week 1, I really noticed, and a lot of people, I'm not going to just say I'm the only one noticed this, but the Bengals defense is a lot better than people gave them credit for coming into the season, and they've continued to look good. Like we talked about with Najee Harris last week, no running back, period. They've faced Dalvin Cook, they faced David Montgomery, and now they face Najee Harris. No running back has ever rushed for more than 60 yards against them, or 61 yards, I think is the exact number. So you look at James Robinson, you look at, Carlos Hyde, they're not going for over that number. There's no way there's not going to be enough volume. But then you look at Trevor Lawrence, who is throwing so many interceptions right now. That's going to create short fields for Jamar Chase. That's going to create short fields for Joe Burrow. That's going to create short fields for Joe Mixon. Players that are playing really, really well. We want Joe Burrow to throw the ball a ton. We want him to be super efficient. But that offense is actually playing pretty well. They're playing methodically. They're moving the ball slowly. They're working through Joe Mixon instead of relying on Joe Burrow to throw the ball 30, 40 times every single game. But this week, I think it's going to be more the same, ground and pound. I think it's going to be kind of close,
Jay,
but I can see Cincy running away with it. What's up?
Yo, we've got some breaking news. We got some breaking news. Richard Sherman signs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just happened. Richard Sherman is a Tampa Bay Buc. They realize that they need some defensive help. What are your thoughts, man? Richard Sherman is a Buccaneer. Breaking news just happened. Is Sherman still good? Is he going to help this defense out? Could they have used Richard Sherman last week versus the Rams?
I don't know if they could have used him last week. I'm not sure if he's going to stop Deshaun Jackson from running way down the field. But what I think he provides more than anything is he provides more leadership for that team. The defense has been kind of reeling a little bit. Bringing in a guy like Richard Sherman could really help. He could be like kind of a glue guy for that defense to really bring them together, provide more leadership. We know that Tom Brady's the leader of the team and the leader of the offense, but they maybe are struggling, whether it's Devin Bush, whether it's Jason Pierre-Paul, whether it's, whoever on that defense. He may be a guy that kind of rallies the secondary back together. You talked about Sean Murphy-Bunting being hurt and some of the other guys being banged up. Bring in Richard Sherman, an experienced player, a great cover corner, could be a guy who really brings that defense together. And I think, for them, easy signing. Veteran leadership, Super Bowl champion, shown great tools, great abilities to cover for a long period of time, a guy who really had to grind out his career, but still making things happen on defense. I think it's a great signing for the Bucs. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and I was trying to see what happened to him, because I was looking at his statistics from last year to see how he played. He didn't play in a ton of games, but I guess he got on injured reserve. He had a calf strain, was activated in November, first interception. So he was just released, and 49ers went in a different direction. I think this is a good signing. They need veteran leadership. They need help on the back end. Richard Sherman can still play. His game was never predicated on just being this uber athletic type cornerback. He knows the game. He's smart. It's like having the defensive back version of Tom Brady on your side of the defense. And that's what he's going to bring. I think he's going to help this defense out tremendously because right now they are getting sliced and diced through the air. I don't think we could expect
second last in passing yards allowed.
They're second last in passing yards allowed.
And they've allowed the most touchdowns in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to cut it, man. And especially when we talked about Tampa Bay not having a ground game. I would assume, and can you look this up while I'm talking, they've got to have one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL. They have to. I would say if I had to bet money on it, they've got to be bottom 5 in the NFL in rushing right now. So when you don't have a dominant run game, your defense is giving up all kind of yards through the air. That does not bode well for what you're asking 44-year-old Tom Brady to do week in and week out. And, they were down Antonio Brown. This is a good move for Tampa Bay. I'm not about to lose my, flip out and say, oh my God, this is the best signing in the history of the NFL. But this is a good signing. And Evan said, to be fair, they played Dallas and LA, who are top 5 passing attacks. Well, that's what it's going to take to win the Super Bowl. I mean, you're not going to play against Jacksonville.
Just to even win the NFC, they gotta beat those teams, right?
Yeah, this doesn't matter. Like, you need to be able to at least show up versus those teams. And it would be different if they put up a fight through the air versus Dallas versus LA. They were eviscerated through the air. Dak Prescott, having not played football in 336 days, 0 preseason snaps, borderline no reps in training camp, to go out there and slice that defense up on Thursday Night Football, it's inexcusable. And then versus, one of the biggest games of the season versus the Rams, to just get gutted over the top, underneath. This excuse, for those of y'all who may be tapping in for the first time, one of the things that I just do not stand for is excuses. I just don't. Oh, well, they played a hard defense. Oh, well, he had a hard matchup. Sam Howell didn't look good, but Virginia Tech's I don't care. Perform when you need to perform. We want to praise teams for stopping the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then when you get your ass tore up versus Dallas and the Rams, we want to say, oh, well, they're a good team. Do you think a bad team is going to make it to the NFC Championship game? Do you think a bad team is going to make the playoffs? They needed help. They're getting killed through the air. This is a good signing for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so to your point about the rushing, what do you think their longest carry is on the season? And they only have 169 rushing yards, second last in the NFL.
I knew they were bottom 5. Their longest carry is probably 19 yards.
10 yards is the longest carry they've had all season long, which is dead last in the NFL. It's worse than the Packers, worse than the Falcons, Saints, Rams. Rams, actually, their long is only 15, which is pretty funny. But yeah, not good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're not running the ball enough. They only have 48 attempts, which also might be dead last. Yeah, 48 attempts.
They only have
also
48 rush attempts?
Yeah, dead last in the NFL. The Steelers only have 50. Jets only have 61. Jaguars have 61. Seahawks have 63. They need to run the ball. You can't win if you don't run the ball. So do you want to go back to the Bengals?
Yeah, let's go back. Yeah, sorry, let's go back. So let's talk about Jamarvelous Chase, right? Chase and Jefferson, over under half a touchdown. Is Jamar Chase going to stay in the flames and score a touchdown versus Jacksonville? Lock that shit in. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yes. He is going to go for 4 straight. I think he's going to blow up on the big stage versus Jacksonville. His team is not good. We saw them do a decent job against Arizona last week. Again, I thought Jacksonville played really tough that game. I thought they played really hard. I think they showed up versus Arizona. It looked like for a minute Arizona was going to lose that game. But, ultimately Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray had other plans. But I think this is a lock. I think Jamar Chase is going for another 1 to 2 touchdowns versus the Jaguars. We know when they want to take a deep shot, they're going to Jamar Chase. They're not going to Tyler Boyd deep. They're going to Jamar Chase deep. And it always happens like at a point where you think he's not doing anything. Like Jamar Chase has done nothing this game. And then you see Joe Burrow drop back and you see the ball go in the air and you just know it's going to number 1. And then he catches a touchdown. I think this is a lock. What about you?
Yeah, I love this number. I believe it's minus 115 right now, depending on the book you look at. Like you said, 3 straight weeks. It's going to be easy for Jamar Chase to shred this Jacksonville defense. And we're suspecting T. Higgins is not going to play on Thursday. So if he doesn't play, again, more targets for Jamar Chase, more targets for Tyler Boyd, more carries for Joe Mixon. I just love this over for the touchdowns. We talked about yesterday where if you bet on Jamar Chase to score every single week, if you put $100 on it, you would have $600 today. And so you could keep rolling that. We talked about players. We love their props going forward. Jamar Chase is on pace to easily hit his over, which is only 6.5 for the year. And he could probably hit double digits with ease with the way he's scoring touchdowns right now. That chemistry you see it each and every game. People talked about how he's going to lose snaps to Auden Tate. People said the same thing about Justin Jefferson being the number 3 option. It's not going to happen, man. It's not going to happen. As much as I like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase is probably going to be the alpha in this offense, averaging 20 yards a reception, 36% touchdown rate. He's just balling right now. It's very easy to see why he was such a high pick in the draft.
Well, and you make a good point. Like on a short week where you've got limited practice time, limited film, limited study time, if I'm the coach, I'm saying, Joe, what are you comfortable with? Like, let's do what you're comfortable with, and what Joe Burrow was comfortable with is throwing to Jamar Chase. And I do like Tyler Boyd's lines. Evan said could boost Boyd. I think so. Boyd's set at 5.5 receptions right now. I like that. 57.5 yards on PointsBet for Tyler Boyd. I was more interested in Tyler Boyd's touchdown prop, but it's only 135, plus 135 for Tyler Boyd. So not a lot of juice on that side, which I think Joe Burrow may be the play. I think Cincinnati's going to put on a show versus Jacksonville tomorrow night. And I think a lot of that – go ahead.
One thing I will say, to your point about Jacksonville playing well last week, they only put up 12 points on offense. And then the previous week against the Broncos, they only put up 13 points because they did have that return touchdown. That was
the bar is low. The bar is low for Jacksonville to play well, right? Like the bar is not high.
But I mean, if Trevor Lawrence is going to throw 2 picks again, the Bengals are going to win. They're going to cover that spread. And that's why I like them to cover the spread. I think the defense is plenty good enough. James Robinson, like we talked about, or Joe. We'll start with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, 20 rush attempts. I think this is an easy smash. We've looked at this line every single week. It started at 15.5 or 16.5, went to 17.5, went to 18.5. Now it's at 19.5 because they are running this offense through Joe Mixon. And against the Jaguars, he is going to hit this prop, I think, probably in 3 quarters because they're going to run the ball a ton. I think they're going to have a lot of success. I just see a situation where Joe Mixon runs the ball 30 times. He goes off for like 150 yards. To me, it comes down to if he can break a big run. If he breaks a big run, then maybe he doesn't hit it because he's not going to have to run as much. But even I think his over-under is where it's at like 84.5 yards. I don't mind that number, but I just think the carries are just guaranteed for him right now. He's getting like 95% of the rushing load. He, I believe, is second in the NFL in total carries, only behind Derrick Henry. That should tell you everything you need to know. If you're second in the league in carries behind Derrick Henry, you're probably going to get 20 carries a game because Derrick Henry gets like 25 to 28 carries every single game. So I really like this number for Joe Mixon. I think he's going to smash the over. I could see him going for 25 to 30. It just depends on game script. But again, and then as well, Joe Burrow's pass attempts, they're going to be down. Like they're going to be low. He's listed at 31.5. He's been hitting like 25. He hit 18, I think, a couple weeks ago. Yeah. He is not going to be throwing the ball that much against the Jacksonville Jaguars. 31 is way too high, working off of last year's averages. It's a new year, new offense, a lot of Joe Mixon and not a whole lot of Joe Burrow. But Jamar Chase to go in the end zone, love that number as well.
Remember all those people who thought Joe Mixon was cooked? Like they were like, Joe Mixon. I don't like Joe Mixon. Yeah, fuck out of here. James Robinson. 52.5 over under. They finally unleashed J-Rob last week, and he looked good. Like, it's about time they stopped with this Carlos Hyde nonsense and give James Robinson the ball. Cincinnati's defense is good. Like, let's give credit where credit is due. Trey Hendrickson and company, they had a linebacker last week with 2 interceptions and 14 tackles, which is just crazy. I forgot his name, but it's a good defense. But J-Rob, 52.5 yards. Are you back in on James Robinson, who I think is really one of the better running backs in the NFL if you just give him the ball? Where are you at with J-Rob and his over-under 52.5?
I got to take the under. I think I'm staying in the flames with these running backs getting stopped by the Cincinnati defense. The D-line is great. Like I said, they stopped much better running backs in the past and held them to low yardage. I just think that the books haven't quite caught up with how good this defense has been. I believe they're still top 10 in rush defense. They're honestly even probably top 10 in overall defense as far as points scored. They're just not allowing a lot of points. They're not allowing a ton of yards, and they're just methodically playing the game with Joe Burrow and running back. I don't know. I think he's a good running back. I just don't think this is his week. In the same way it wasn't Najee's week, in the same way I didn't love it for David Montgomery. I don't really love it for J-Rob, but he could. It's really just one big run and a few small runs. But the problem is if they get behind, they're going to abandon the run, and Trevor Lawrence is going to throw the ball like 40 times, and they're going to lose the game because that's not how they can win. And as well, the offensive line is pretty suspect. And so if the defensive line for the Bengals is as good as I think it is, and the offensive line is as suspect as I think it is, I think that this could easily be a number that J-Rob only hits like 30, maybe 35. But if he breaks off a big run, maybe he could hit it if you're feeling confident.
I'm trying to look up Jacksonville's offensive line to see because, Najee didn't get it, but we know that line is poop, and we know Ben Roethlisberger stinks. So I don't think they'll be able to crowd the dude. They were throwing, and I'm not even joking, like 8 in the box and just singling up the wide receivers and saying, I dare you to throw the ball deep. Like, I dare you to throw it deep. I I don't know. I probably would stay away from it, but I'll just say it wouldn't shock me if James Robinson had 60, 70 rushing yards in this matchup. Again, coming off of a short week in which they lost, Cincinnati does a really good job of getting pressure on the quarterback. You've got a young guy. The best way to take pressure off of him is to ball control that thing, and you've got one of the better running backs in the league. I truly believe James Robinson is one of the better running backs. I'm not saying best, I'm not saying top 10, but one of the better competent running backs in the league. And just feed him, ride him, and it paid off last week. You saw the explosiveness, you saw him grind out yards. But I'm with you, man. Cincinnati, I just think they're the superior team. They're the better coach team. Even though offensively, I don't even think they've unleashed Joe Burrow yet, but it's a short week. I don't think this is going to be a shootout. I think Cincinnati wins this game, and I'd probably give the points to Jacksonville. I think they cover. I think they cover 7.5. So Jamar Chase is going to have a good night, and that's really where I'm at with this matchup.
Do we see any of Dan Arnold? Is he even going to suit up today? Because they traded away. It's not Travion Henderson. That's the running back for
running back. C.J. Henderson.
C.J. Henderson.
Yeah, C.J. Henderson.
C.J. Henderson.
Good cornerback.
Getting my Hendersons mixed up.
Do we see Dan Arnold?
Yeah. Do you think we see some Dan Arnold?
Why are we even talking about this? Who cares?
Why not? Maybe he gets the touchdown. Maybe he can get some Dan Arnold props.
Let's see. Does Dan Arnold have a prop? Let's just see.
And to your point, James Robinson, 2.5 yards after contact per attempt. Decent, middle of the pack as far as FTN stats go. So he's doing some stuff on his own, which is great to see. But the offensive line still isn't that great. I'm trying to find the exact numbers on their offensive line, but it's a bit all over the place right now.
They've got Dan Arnold plus 600 to score a touchdown. It's not bad.
I don't know. He's probably not going to play. That's really the only fear, right? But if he does see the field and you see him running routes, maybe you just hit that in game.
You could hit that in game. You could throw $10 on it to win you some gas money. That wouldn't be bad, right?
Gas money bets with GQ.
Gas money. Get all gas. That's all we do. We bet gas money. But hey, we appreciate y'all tapping in today. Tomorrow we got a bunch to get into. We've got the Week 4 outlook, Washington, Atlanta, Cleveland, Minnesota, Carolina, Dallas. You know we're talking about that. We got to get into that, and we'll talk about the Giants. We'll do all that tomorrow. Appreciate y'all waking up. Make today great. Make today great again. MTGA. We out, man. Peace.